Okay, in this video we will learn about the universal selector in CSS. So the universal selector is used when you want to select each and every element from a HTML structure, right? So in that case you want to use the universal selector. So as you can see, we have learned about the ID and the class names, right? The classes inside of HTML and CSS. And here the idea is you do not want to use classes or ID to select. You just want something so that you can select everything inside of a HTML website. So how we can do that? We can do that by using the universal selector. So the universal selector is the star, okay? And then we can write some CSS here. So we can do color and then do something like orange, red, something like that, and hit save. Go to the browser, and as you can see, all of the text which we had the color of the orange red. But you might be thinking, okay, I can achieve the same thing if I just do something like body. Okay, and hit save. And as you can see, everything looks the same because the color is inherited from the parent to child. So I can show some other properties which are not inherited. For example, the borders. So if I do something like star and not do color, so do border that can be 1 pixel solid and red, something like that, or orange red. Okay, and yes, definitely we will talk about borders in details. But now as you can see here, all of the elements have borders around them. Okay, so this is basically the universal selector. So now you might be thinking, okay, just like previously, what we can do, we can just do body and see what happens if I do something like that. And now only body has the border. So there is the difference between the body selector and the universal selector, right? So this is the universal selector. Now what you might be thinking, all right, so when we want to use something like that, that is a very good question. So for example, this thing which I did, I do quite often while debugging the websites. What do I mean by that? So for example, some of the elements have a fixed width, some of the element has some fixed height, and due to that, what happens is that there are some unwanted scrolling, horizontal and vertical scrolling happens due to that. So whenever that sort of thing happens, what I do something like this, and I just change the opacity to a little bit less, something like this. Okay, and yeah, something like this. So in that case, what happens is that whenever something is overlapping, right, whenever something is overlapping, then I can exactly see which element is taking how much width and the height, and depending on that I can fix my issue. The other place when we use this while resetting the styles, because if I just get rid of this border and go to the browser, as you can see here, our HTML page has some default stylings. For example, if I just open that and go here, open the element inspector, and as you can see, this paragraph one has some, I will just select that. So as you can see, this H2 has some spacing on top and the bottom of that. So what we can do, we can reset that, and many of the CSS frameworks do that by default. So let me just go here, and what I can do padding to 0 and margin to 0. And yes, we will definitely cover padding and margin as well. So if I just go here, now as you can see, each of the elements do not have any unwanted spaces. So whenever we want to reset the styles, we use the universal selector for that. And this is quite handy because, as I mentioned, something like Tailwind CSS or Bootstrap uses the universal selector under the hood to reset all of the unwanted styles so that we can style the elements properly. So yeah, this is the universal selector in CSS.